You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Man, we are here once again, and man, we have another true special guest talking to us today. Kevin Kepple. He is a transformational business coach, but he does a lot of good things for his community. And I am having a true honor having him on the show on Refocus Radio today. He's from Texas as well, but we're going to learn a little bit about his story and what he's doing currently. So, Kevin, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
And it's an honor having you on the show. You are doing great things with impacting your personal community, but just also the global community, because you work with many people with helping just impact their life and helping them develop themselves and become better leaders and just better influencers, but also doing it with purpose, not just aimlessly wishing for a better life, but finding out what are the actual core ingredients that can help them kind of manufacture, right? Doing a production line of what is some of the things I can correct in my life that can actually turn this situation into a better situation. So for today's topic, man, we're going to explore aligning leaders with their hero's footprint so they can maximize their genius and also align with their true purpose. And that equals creating a massive impact with their community. So let's learn a bit about you before we dive into the topic, man. What got you started in being a transformational business coach?
Yeah, so, for the longest time, like a lot of people, I was doing, what I was supposed to do instead of kind of what I wanted to do, because I really didn't have clarity on what I wanted to do. I went to college and I got out and I got a job and I kind of liked it, but not really. I kind of liked the people I worked with, but not really. But I was in sales and I was good at it and I was making more money than I ever made. And I was like, maybe this is it. You just, kind of try to help as much as you can. And maybe you get to retire in 30 or 40 years and then you can be happy. And that's the model that I kept seeing. And I was like, there has to be more. And I knew I wanted more. I just had no idea what getting to that more looked like. And I moved up and evolved to another better job, which I was having a lot of success in. And it was a sales role as well. And I was getting to help a lot of people. And in sales, like any other job, if you're good, you get promoted. And then I was the director of sales and I was getting help, a lot of the people on my team to really be better versions of them and create more in their lives. And I was winning the trips, like you get to win trips in sales if you're good at it with some companies. And I was on trips and all the good stuff. And like all of a sudden I was looking around and I realized that I was really unhappy with a lot of things, with my relationship with myself, relationships with, the people in my life, because I just wasn't happy. And like, I was like, I feel like I should be happy. I'm making money. I'm winning at work. This is like what you're supposed to do. And I got a business coach and he was a cool dude, man. He was in the Secret Service for almost 30 years. And he had this like way of, just being ultra still and present, that was his job for a long time, pretty much. And he was like, man, tell me what you like about your job. And I was like, well, I love this and I love that and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, I don't even think you like your job. What are you talking about? He's like, man, you're not even looking me in the eye. You're sunk down in your chair. Your tone just totally dropped. There's no energy. I was like, man, well, some things could be better. And really what we figured out was, what, I really like helping other people, align with their version of amazing so that, we can really go out and create more impact together. Because, when you're scaling, creating leaders behind you, that's probably one of the biggest ways that I found to make impact. And, I realized that, that maybe I should make a pivot. And so long story short, I got a job with a pretty big company that's based here in Dallas that I was a national leadership and sales coach for them. And so I got to coach people all day and train people and speak on, do leadership education and that kind of stuff. And got really good at what I was doing. And then I stepped out on my own a few years ago. And now I get to work with business owners and entrepreneurs and executives to really help, them figure out, like, hey, like what makes me happy and what's blocking that and how can I align with my heart and really create from that place. And like that's not like woo woo. It's like, hey, what's the truth of me? Because what I like you might not like, and that's okay. We're different people, like, and that's the beauty of the world, is that we have the power of choice. And so what we do really about the hero's footprints, like we all have a hero inside of us, But, quite often we fall to the wrong side and go into that, victim place. And like, for me, I was like my own villain and my own victim. And I was really unhappy and I was punishing myself. And, luckily my coach was the guide and I got to be the hero. And now I get to be the guide for people on their hero's journey and, whatever that looks like. And really, like, like you mentioned, it's about helping them align with their genius. And when it comes to genius, there's kind of 4 pillars that we usually go through. And it starts with connection, being connected first and foremost to ourselves and really, understanding, what do I want? What brings me joy and what blocks that? And when I have, that deep connection to, my truth, so to speak, then I can really start to create clarity on, the purpose that I want to serve and how I want to impact the world. And, passion's great. And that's what I want, right? I want to have passion with what I'm doing. But, if I'm passionate about playing video games, I don't get paid for it. And I'm not helping anybody with that. That's not really serving a purpose. It's just something I'm passionate about. And, so when you get, really clear on your passion, like this is what I'm passionate about doing, creating, whatever, how do I mix generosity into that? And that's, where that clarity comes in. And that's kind of your why. And, serving a purpose that really, helps people in some way. It doesn't have to be anything big, like stay-at-home dad, right? Stay-at-home mom, whatever, or, president of a company, like they're all impacting people in some way. And, if we have that, connection that leads us to that clarity, then that's when we really help people learn to maximize their creativity. And, creativity is striving for, our uniqueness. When I'm creating, I'm bringing something to the world that's never been in existence before. It might rhyme with other things, but I think so many people get stuck in that trap of comparison. They look over the fence at, what their friends are doing, their family, or people they don't even know on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And then, they compare themselves and they feel inferior or superior. And neither one of those are good, because then you start trying to compete with this like false image of success that you have in your head. And, it ends up in judgment of you and judgment of other people. And whatever you judge, you're no longer going to be able to understand because you just made the decision about how you feel about it. And so we get those 3 C's lined up: the connection, the clarity, the creativity maximized. That's when natural, peak states start to emerge in our lives. And we get like that flow state on demand. And man, flow is phenomenally powerful. I mean, for so many reasons. We get, like a 500% increase in productivity. And, that's like 5 hours for every hour. I'll take that all day long. And, a really cool byproduct of flow too is that we get this chemical cascade of, neuroepinephrine, dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, all the good chemicals that really heighten our just mood. We feel better. And, we get serotonin too, which, lasts for a couple of days afterwards. And so, study after study on the internet shows. And so if it's on the internet, right, it has to be true. That's the rules. But I think it's pretty accurate. That the happiest people in the world are the ones who find the most flow in their lives. And so, you're going to be pretty happy. You're going to be crushing it at a level you've never been crushing it at before, when you can really align those 3 C's and start finding that flow on demand.
Once
So
again,
that's what we do.
Once again, man, listen to Refocus Radio, talking to Kevin Kepple, and man, everything you said perfectly, like boom, like slam dunk, alley oop, everything, 3-point line. But it's true, because it's the fact that if you want to move on from this current chapter of your life, then you're gonna have to pick up the pen again. You gotta keep moving, because the fastest way to get stuck is to think about the past, because the current present moment is the current present moment, and you get to write in that moment, versus you waste that time and you just focus on the past, or you're too focused on the future. When you are helping people maximize, right, their potential to become their true genius through their purpose, right, that defines their why, how do you take them through those steps, those series of steps, to kind of break down in bite sizes how they can measure their progress as they are taking those steps forward, without allowing yourself to remain passive and worrying about the past?
Yeah, I think that's such a phenomenal point. I think so many people get stuck in the past or go to the future constantly. And it's like, man, I get no real reward that I want. Like, I go stuck in the past. I get kind of guilt and depression is the only thing I get from that. And people stay stuck in the future, get all that anxiety. And it's like, man, when you continually surrender to that sweet spot of the present moment, there is no pain from the past or nothing to worry about, because, the only thing that's real is right here, right now. And that's a pretty brilliant point you brought up. And that's one of the big things we do. It's like, help people understand that they need to, surrender to that sweet spot that's always right here waiting for them. And, that's so simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but like I have to learn to let go. I have to learn to let go of needing myself to be a certain way to be okay. I have to let go of needing other people to be okay for me to be okay. And we really help people shift by asking questions. And it's just like leadership, right? The best leaders are the ones who ask great questions and empower and inspire people to create their own solutions. And you can do that by yourself, or if you have a really great coach, they'll do that for you. And that's a huge part of what we do, because there's kind of like three levels of coaching, so to speak. And the first level is that very like line specific, where maybe somebody's just not a very good listener, and so you give them a tactic. You're like, hey, don't talk so much, right? That's a pretty simple tactic, right? But you're going to be a better listener, and maybe help them understand, that there's an Abraham Lincoln quote. It's like, keep your mouth shut, let people think you're a fool. You don't have to open your mouth and prove it. And like, just that's level one, right? Level two is more strategy specific. So maybe the people that you're working with want to get better at relationships in general. So you give them a strategy. You're like, hey, be interested in other people, put their needs first, and all those simple things. And then level three is really the goal, where we spend most of the time with the people that we get to work with. It's that transformational coaching, which is where you kind of help people create a paradigm shift in the way they see the world, by helping them maybe understand a truth about life, or a truth about themselves, and just see things differently. And you do that with questions, like, because you're looking to create insight. Because if I just tell you, hey, like, when you do this, like, it's not good or whatever, you may hear it and you may change for a little while, but we're habitual creatures. So unless we fundamentally see it differently ourselves, then the behavior is going to revert back to whatever it was. And people, and myself included in the past, it was like, I'll cling to these things I don't want in spite of the unknown, right? Because the ego tells us that unknown is risky. And anytime we're going to be creative, right, it's a little risky because it's never been created. It's going to the unknown. But that's what we really work on, helping our clients get comfortable, being uncomfortable in the unknown, because that's where you're going to find, everything that you want. Like, otherwise, as you mentioned, it's like you're living the same day every day, just a little different. And, the one guarantee we get in life, aside from death and taxes, is that things are going to change. And if you're clinging to the past, like, you're going to get kind of eaten up by personal inflation. The world's going to continue revolving around you, just not the way you want it to. And so, really understanding that, hey, you know what, I don't know what's next, but I'm open to better. And, I need to understand the only thing that I can't control is me. And, the fastest way to more in any area of our life is by developing ourselves.
And you just said something there. I don't know what's next, but I'm open. Can you help me out there?
Yeah. Think about it. Like, so many people, they get so sideways because they have to, like, know how, right? And, like, those two questions, what and why, the passion and the purpose I was talking about earlier, that's where I always start with people. I'm like, what do you want? And, like, if you ask people that, you'll get, like, either a blank stare or a tremendous amount of words that don't tell you anything, right? Yeah. And so it's like, okay, if you can't explain something really simply to me, then you don't understand it. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person, but you just need to do some work. And so, what do you want? And then why, right? And what people do is they say, okay, they add in the third question, right? How am I going to do this? I'm like, well, if you knew how, you would have already done it. And if you say, this is exactly how I'm going to achieve this, goal or intention that I have, then you've just married yourself to one way to win. And that's an expectation. And if you, like, expect something of yourself or other people and it happens, then there's no real win there anyways. You're like, that's what I expected. And if you don't, you failed, right? Or they failed you or whatever. And so, like, man, I don't figure out what I want, why I want it, take the next best step. But so many people want to figure out all the steps ahead of time. And you have no idea what's going to happen. Like, Mike Tyson said it best. He said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
And, like, you're going to get into action. You start getting this immediate feedback. Like, maybe you built this whole plan and now you're married to it because I spent all this time doing this. I got to kind of own it. Like, no, man, just what's the next best step I can take? And then, like, not being married to the result either. And that right there, detaching from the outcome. If everyone in the world could learn that skill, it would be so awesome. Like, not needing, things to work out a certain way for you to, be happy, and just, whatever is, without your judgment.
And you said on another podcast show a quote that I have to say, man, because it really, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because it's so true. You said the fastest way to more is developing yourself. I mean, that is so good, because if you don't, not just learn, but you kind of touched in the green room. If you don't apply, like you don't just take action of what you are learning, right? Then what are you really doing? You're not seeing any change. You're not seeing any increase in your wisdom or experience, because you're not, so to speak, in the field. You're just like sitting on the sidelines, hoping that life gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, that's so dangerous, because then you start, sitting there in inertia, and you start making up stories about yourself, about other people. And, like you start believing every thought you have. And like the greatest thing I think I ever learned was that I don't have to believe every thought I have. Sometimes it's just a thought. And you know what? Take it a step further. I don't need to have an opinion about everything I think. I don't need to have an opinion about everything other people think, right? And so many people are just running around, compulsively reacting to their own opinions or the opinions of others. Like, man, you give up, the ability to use that, creative genius that we all have inside of us. And there's really kind of 5 things that we can use when it comes to creativity. And that's like one of the other ways we really help people to understand how to bring more of their, genius into the world, is by getting a little more granular. And it's like with my thoughts, right? That's the obvious way we can create more. Somebody at one time thought of creating a service where, random strangers will come pick you up in their car and take you places. And now it's called Uber, right? Or Lyft or whatever. And then, we have our emotions, and, thinking and emotions are 2 different things. I think with my mind, but my mind thinks with my body, when I have an emotional reaction to the thoughts that I have, right? And that's energy and motion. And, my emotions are a form of creation. Like, cause, if I show up with, really, let's say, excited, happy emotions, that's infectious. And I create that in others. That's a form of creation. And with my words, I can create friends, I can create enemies, I can create, speeches, I can create stories. You can create so much with words. You can create perspective for yourself, for others, whatever. And then you get to create with our deeds, like the way that, small things like picking up trash, when nobody's looking, that's creating some leadership, because somebody's always watching. Somebody sees that. There's like a old man that lives down the street from me, and I walk my dog pretty early right now because it's like 100 degrees by like 9 o'clock, it feels like. And he's always picking up trash, and that creates like, some more love inside of me. I love for him, I just love for our world. And I try to do the same thing. And then maybe one of the best ways we can create is with the people around us, because you and I are so much more powerful than 2 people, because we have synergy. You have ideas, I have ideas, we bring those together and make completely new ideas, and we're going to be way more powerful than 2 people. And that's like, it scales on the more and more people we bring into it. And I think it's a lot of fun when we're creating, because you're pointed forwards. There's no time to think about what's not working or what happened in the past, and you're just simply using that as a learning platform.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest, Kevin Kepple. And today's topic, we're basically just talking about leadership and how we can help them align themselves with their hero's footprint, so that they can maximize not just their genius, but also align with their true purpose and create a massive impact for their community and for themselves, people around them. Because we need more people of action, because you can Google leadership and see a lot of quotes on Instagram. But in all seriousness, you have a podcast as well. And I know Tom is running short a little bit on this, but you have a podcast called Unlock Your Freedom. What's some of the core points that you try to bring in every show for your audience when you're doing your podcast?
Yeah, a couple of the things that I really like to illuminate is that, there's all different types of leaders, and leadership's not a decision we get to make. Leadership's a behavior. And, I don't get to call myself a leader. That's like me saying I'm funny. If nobody's laughing at the jokes, I'm not funny, probably, right? But, with leadership, if you're not inspiring and empowering people, then you're not leading. You're probably just telling people what to do. And, because inspiring is stimulating to action, empowering is giving me the knowledge of what to do with it. And so one of the big focuses is helping people understand there's a pretty specific influence equation you can follow. And it's trust, connection, vision. But so many leaders, myself included, when I was younger, we start at the back. We just share the vision. Like, all right, here's where we're going. Let's go get it. And, people aren't that connected to it. They're just not going to show up as much as they could. But when you work to build trust as a leader and let people know that it's okay, that they're safe, safe to be vulnerable and be creative, and that leads to connection, right? And so powerful when you have, the team, yourself, everybody's connected to a common vision. That's when y'all start co-elevating together because you're co-creating on the same vision. And if you have people growing as individuals like that and you're growing together as a team, like that's how you're going to create a championship in any endeavor, whether it's a basketball team or a billion-dollar company. Like people grow as individuals and you grow together as a team, and that's how you maximize everything beyond all reasonable expectations.
And this may seem to be a easy answer to this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. With your experience working with different clients, is there a common pattern that you see slow down people's ability to become leaders and ability to make progress in their life?
Yeah, needing to be right as opposed to kind. you know, being right about everything, even themselves, and instead of just being kind and having grace. Because when you can be kind instead of right, it leads to humility. And humility is, the ability to see the good and the value in other people's ideas, and the ability to say, I don't know. And it took me 30 years to learn how to say I don't know and mean it. But ever since then, like I've totally unlocked my freedom because I don't know. I don't know everything. I'm not good at everything. Like matter of fact, I'm quite terrible at some things like fishing, right? I'm awful at that. And that's okay. I don't enjoy it anyways. But the things that I'm really good at, like that's where I get to shine. And it's pretty awesome when you can spend, the predominant amount of your time just doing what you can do at an extremely high level in a way that serves other people.
And to the listener who's listening to this, you listen on Refocus Radio, talking to our special guest, Kevin Kepple, transformation business coach. Someone listening to this right now, and they're like, okay, man, I know you're in the big leagues, the major leagues, but for the beginner, I just heard about this just right now. What's the first step that I can actually take today as far as starting the journey to not just learn how to find my purpose and to discover the things that I've maybe ignored or just overlooked? What's that first step that I can probably take, generally speaking, to start the process?
Sure. I would just, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, just get really clear on what you want and why. And the thing that used to trip me up was I thought, when I was picking purpose, that I had to pick like this grand purpose, the best purpose that's ever been picked, right? Like Elon Musk is going to Mars or whatever. Maybe I should do something a little bigger. And, that's comparison. And so understanding that we all share the same inner purpose, and that is to be the very, best, most maximized version of us, because the more we grow, the more we can give, right? And so, cool. So how does that inner purpose line up with some outer purpose I want to serve? Like who can I serve with the gifts that I have? And then, take it a step further. Think about somebody that's a little further down the road that you really admire the way they show up in the world. And, ask yourself, how could I, maybe be more like them? Or maybe what are they doing that I could do that would heighten the probability of my success? And maybe even reach out and ask them questions if they're open to it. But, it starts with clarity. What do you want and why do you want it? Because if you don't know what you want, you have no idea what action to take to go get it. If you don't know what you want, you wouldn't even know if you got it anyways, if you don't know what it is.
And that is true. And I would also say this for you to respond to. When we find ourselves in the position to leave the old ways, if you will, how much more better will life start to become, even if it's just little bit by little bit? Because once again, we said it earlier in the show, if you remain the same and you hold on to the old ways, you get the same results.
Yeah. And that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And that's basically addiction, because addiction is repetition with little to no payoff. And so, you keep hitting on this one great point. It's like, I've got to, surrender or let go of the things that no longer serve me. And it's so important to understand that when you're letting go of things, there's always going to be some degree of forgiveness involved. Maybe forgiveness of yourself for holding on to it, or maybe there's, something that happened in your life that somebody maybe did to you. And forgive doesn't mean forget, but you've got to forgive the judgment that you've made about yourself or the other person, or the judgment you made about the situation. Because whenever you're holding on to something, you're trapping energy. And man, I want to access every single bit of the energy that I have. And if I'm, dissipating it by holding on to anything that's not serving me, then I'm giving away my power. And I do not want to do that, because, we were blessed by an infinite intelligence with this amazing gift of choice. And, if you're not getting the results you want, examine the choices you're making.
You've been listening to I'm Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Kevin Kepple. You can go to his website, kevinkepple.us. Man, someone listening to this right now and they want to connect with you, find out some of your more resources and what they can just learn more about your services and what you offer. How can they do that, man?
Sure. You can go to my website, which you mentioned. Thanks for sharing that. You can come to Unlock Your Freedom podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'm on Instagram a lot, or LinkedIn, just my name, Kevin Kepple. So reach out if you got a question. I'd love to help and point you in the right direction.
Once again, Kevin Kepple, our special guest for I'm Refocused Radio today. He is doing big things, and true honor being able to have you on the show, man. Thank you for taking time in your super busy schedule talking to us today.
Grateful to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's a great show.
I Am Refocused Radio is brought to you by Foo 4 Star and Holy Crab. Foo 4 Star is a family-owned Asian restaurant in San Antonio, Texas. We have been a local favorite for Asian cuisine for over 10 years. With nothing but full smiles and fast service, you'll be leaving satisfied. Come on in for some authentic Vietnamese food. Holy Crab is one-of-a-kind Cajun Creole-style seafood restaurant located in Universal City, Texas. We offer traditional seafood items as well as chicken and steak. We also offer seafood boils. Come give us a try. You won't be disappointed. You can find these two eateries in Universal City, Texas at 2921 Pat Booker Road.